Hit record. Yay, I didn't forget. And then I'm going to do a quick introduction to, oh, geez, it says I can't mute. Oh, let's see. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Cheryl's a good friend of mine. She's from Michigan. She's a board certified medical doctor in internal medicine and infectious disease, and she works part-time as a physician and nearly full-time as a volunteer public health and environmental advocate. Her activism started in 2018 when plans for a new industrial hog facility near her home in west central Michigan and close to Lake Michigan sparked her concern. What began as a local fight evolved into a passionate, ongoing effort to challenge the harms of industrial agriculture. Grounded in deep reverence for nature and a physician's duty to first do no harm, Cheryl now works to help undo public health, environmental, and climate harms caused by intensive livestock production. Since 2022, much of her focus has shifted to exposing the false promises of biofuels, particularly biogas made from manure using anaerobic digesters, and advancing truly clean energy policies. I'm almost done, and it says my internet is bad, so I hope you're hearing me. Cheryl holds a volunteer leadership role in the Sierra Club, National Grassroots Network, Food and Agricultural Team, and CAFO sub-team, and Sierra Club Michigan chapter and Michiganders for Just Farming. And she's a proud member of Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action, which supported her work so far. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm glad we've been able to help. In coalition with Michigan-based and national allies, she advocates for a sustainable and just food and farm system rooted in the One Health principle, good for people, the planet, and animals. So, Cheryl, we're really interested and excited to hear your presentation.
All right, am I able to share? And thank you everybody for being here. This is
You say green share button?
see here. Uh,
We didn't think to try that before when we were yapping in the beginning.
we're good.
There it
You
goes.
see?
Yep.
We can see it.
Okay, hang on. So now I just need to, okay, meetings being recorded, slideshow. Play from start. Hang on. Just a sec, I gotta shoot. I have to be able to see my speaker notes, and those are not here. Okay. All right, I do have to find my speaker notes, and when I do this, hang on, sorry about this. Let me just do end show. Does this work? Or do you see everything?
See everything.
Oh, God.
I
Oh,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter, Cheryl. If it's no problem.
I need to be able, I know what I
Ah,
can do. I'm sorry for this delay, but I have to be able to have my speaker notes, and I
right.
just realized I can't show them both at the same time. I thought I could. So all I need to do is get my phone, and I can pull my speaker notes up on my phone, and we'll be good. So I apologize for this.
Okay,
Give me a minute.
no
no
problem.
problem.
Cheryl is just a wealth of information. And she usually does it with a lot of humor too, which is great.
I think
So,
I see her speaker notes.
yeah, I think she just wants to be able to present it so that she can read them and we can see
Yeah,
the full presentation,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry about this. I thought I'd be able to do that. I have to find my phone now. Of course, that's missing.
Cheryl, did you present to this group before?
Not this group, but I have spoken with, to Micah. So if you attended, okay, hang on, I gotta get my phone.
It was
She,
some other
she's
group, I
she
think.
may have spoken at Sierra Club. I think she does a lot of work with them. She's done
Oh,
stuff
you
with
know what?
climate reality.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah. And MICA, for those who don't know, is the Michigan State affiliate to the Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health. So just like Lori and Rob have Montana, and Bob is with the Virginia, Cheryl and I are with them, and Sue are with the Michigan one. So,
Okay, I think we're almost there. Sorry about that technical difficulty. Okay. All right, let's try this again. All right, play from start. Okay, so everybody can see that, right? Okay, let's go. And again, thank you everybody for being here. So this presentation exposes the deceptive clean energy narrative surrounding biofuels, fuels made from biologic material. I'll focus on biogas produced from manure and other industrial waste streams through anaerobic digestion. Hang on, I want to close this door so my dog doesn't come in here and bark. Hailed as win-win solutions for the climate and struggling farmers, biofuels are false climate fixes. In reality, they are a windfall for fossil fuel interests. We'll look at how waste-to-energy schemes lock us into combustion, edge out truly clean renewables, and encourage more waste, not less. And we'll take a close look at digestate, the byproduct of the anaerobic digestion, and its dirty downside. When I say manure, I mean vast amounts of urine and feces from factory farms. Officially called animal feeding operations, or AFOs, they confine huge numbers of animals and their waste on a small footprint. A CAFO, C for concentrated, is the regulatory term for larger AFOs. By industrial waste streams, I don't mean kitchen scraps. More on that later. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Anaerobic digestion occurs in an oxygen-free environment where specialized microbes break down manure and other wastes called feedstocks. The process produces impure biogas, typically 50 to 70% methane, and digestate. Raw biogas can be burned on site for electricity, but for commercial usage as transportation fuel or fuel for gas-fired power plants, it must be refined into pipeline-quality methane, known as renewable natural gas, RNG, or biomethane. RNG is considered a drop-in fuel because it can be injected into the gas grid. RNG is just methane, and methane, by any other name, burns the same. Big Ag has stretched its mission from feeding the world to now fueling it. Their catchy slogans spin a web of greenwash PR, selling biofuels as veritable wonder fuels. And taking one step closer to the climate abyss, the current administration is using another crisis, global energy poverty, as an excuse to revoke EPA's 2009 endangerment finding that greenhouse gases threaten human health and ramp up fossil fuel and biofuel production. The US plan to save the world? Compassionate combustion. Who needs that humanitarian aid? Now on to the much maligned cow and the livestock methane problem, central to any honest discussion about biogas. According to EPA, agriculture accounts for about 10% of total US greenhouse gas emissions, but that's an underestimate. Some emissions, like those from land use changes, are counted elsewhere. I'll come back to land use change later in the talk. Livestock alone contribute roughly a third of total US methane emissions, about 75% from enteric fermentation, mostly cow burps, and 25% from stored liquid CAFO manure. Nitrous oxide, more potent and longer lived than methane, must not be ignored. Ag is responsible for about 80% of US emissions, mainly from chemical fertilizers. Roughly 75% of cropland is used to grow feed for factory farms, the source of 98% of animal food sold in the US. About 10% goes to biofuel crops. Only 12% is used to grow food for people, and much of it ultra-processed. And just 2% go to fruits and vegetables. You may have heard the saying, it's not the cow, it's the how. Well, it's the cow and the how many. It's the cow because of cow burps. It's the how because of the CAFO model. Manure stored in massive lagoons and pits decomposes anaerobically, releasing methane. Cow pies on pasture are not the culprit. They decompose aerobically, emitting negligible methane. And it's the how many because of the sheer number of cows raised for meat and dairy in the US. The industrial livestock sector admits it has a methane problem and promotes anaerobic digestion as a sustainable solution, claiming that capturing and burning methane is better than letting it escape, since carbon dioxide released is the lesser of two greenhouse gas evils. Before moving on, anybody want to tell me what's wrong with this photo? Anybody? Well, for the sake of time, I will give you the answer. The cows are on pasture. Digesters run on factory farm manure, not cow patties. Digesters can be categorized by location, feedstock, ownership, and scale. They may be on farms, co-located at wastewater treatment plants or landfills, or standalone. They process manure and other so-called organic industrial waste. Co-digesters take in both. They can be municipally or privately owned. Increasingly, they are industrial scale on-farm enterprises, joint ventures between big corporate investors and dairy CAFOs. Before peering into the organics kitchen sink, let's clarify what the biogas industry actually means by organic. They toss the word organic around a lot. In digester speak, organic just means any matter of biologic origin that contains carbon and typically hydrogen, the basic building blocks of most combustion fuels, whether fossil or bio. It does not mean certified organic under any rigorous standards or guaranteed chemical-free, toxin-free, or safe. Let's go kitchen sink diving. Green Era Campus is a privately owned standalone digester on Chicago's South Side. Its feedstock profile reflects the range of industrial waste many commercial co-digesters accept. The source separated organics, SSO, kitchen sink, can include agricultural processing waste, depackaged food waste, slaughterhouse and rendering waste, CAFO manure and production waste, fats, oils, and grease, including trap grease, and a lot more. Green Era even offers something called FSMA compliant certified destruction for products that could harm consumers if not properly disposed of. These waste streams carry not just nutrients and methane precursors, but PFAS, microplastics, heavy metals, pathogens, antibiotic-resistant genes, pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptors, and more. It's important to know that the anaerobic digestion doesn't mitigate a lot of these harmful substances. Contaminants in, contaminants out. Green Era sells its digestate to Black and women-led Urban Growers Collective as an urban garden fertilizer. Renewable energy simply means replenishable over a human, not a geologic time frame. Bio isn't always better, and neither is renewable. Non-combustion renewables like solar and wind are truly nature-made, zero emissions and clean. Combustion renewables made from carbon-based biomass are not zero emissions or pollutant-free. Classifying methane-generating waste and biofuel crops as renewable energy resources serves fossil fuel interests, not the planet. Let's turn to state low-carbon fuel standards to understand why. To tackle the climate crisis, there's no doubt we must decarbonize the transportation sector, the largest source of US greenhouse gas emissions. Toward that end, and I'll use my state as an example, along with California. Michigan's Senate Bill 275 of 2023 proposed a state clean fuel standard, ostensibly to lower the carbon intensity of transportation fuels. It sounded good in theory. In practice, it would have prioritized combustion biofuels over non-combustion renewables and electrification. 4 states have passed LCFS legislation. Several others have acted bills or are considering legislation, including states where previous versions failed. The biofuels industry is persistent. Senate Bill 275 failed to advance, but most certainly will be reintroduced. The biofuels industry would like nothing more than a Midwestern LCFS hub to expand their market. Why is the biogas industry so keen on state low carbon fuel standards? California's low carbon fuel standard, the model for Senate Bill 275, holds part of the answer. Launched in 2011, it awards lucrative, and I mean lucrative, credits for capturing methane from manure and other industrial waste using anaerobic digesters. The key word here is market. These credits are commodities bought, sold, and traded to offset greenhouse gas emissions. The LCFS credit system, or the LCFS system, lets polluters in states with LCFS programs to meet emissions reduction mandates by purchasing credits instead of actually cutting emissions. And for biogas producers, it's a gold mine. Why is RNG, biomethane, biogas, chemically the same as fossil gas, considered clean? And why are the credits, particularly for dairy biogas, so valuable? CI scores based on greenhouse gas life cycle assessments determine credit values. The lower the CI score relative to fossil fuels, the better. The CI scores for all currently certified California LCFS dairy RNG pathways are well below zero, based on avoided methane crediting schemes, not real reductions in source emissions by the livestock sector. The graph on the left, which I've enlarged here, shows the disparity between the average CI score for dairy RNG, about -300, and fossil gas, about +90. Grid electricity can't compete with a CI score of about +16. And yes, under California's LCFS, electricity is categorized as a clean fuel for EVs, which I don't have a problem with, but we'll get to why I have a problem with how California tries to electrify the transportation sector later. The diagram enlarged on the right diagram enlarged shows the greenhouse gas emissions subtracted from the avoided methane credit of about -400 to arrive at the dairy RNG CI score. The next slide incorporates this diagram right here. I attended a series of stakeholder meetings in 2022 exploring the potential for RNG development in my state of Michigan. Upon realizing that the accounting framework for manure biogas failed to account for all greenhouse gas inputs, I raised my hand and I questioned the presenter. His response, which shocked me, "Oh, those are out of the boundary," as in not counted. The center inset shows which emissions are selectively counted. Everything else, emissions from cow burps, CAFO expansions, livestock consolidation, feed production, and digestate, is just left out. The life cycle analysis tool used by California, called the GREET model, overestimates emissions reductions, excludes major emissions, and underestimates fugitive emissions, which I'll come back to. The result, artificially low CI scores and inflated credit values. The name of the LCFS game is how low can you go? DTE, a Michigan utility, finagled a lower than average CI score of over -500, less than -500. I don't know if you say over with a negative number, but anyways, for one of its Wisconsin dairy biogas projects. How? by using equipment to reduce methane emissions from digestate, thus padding the avoided methane credit. Here's the rub. Residual digestate methane emissions, which can be significant, aren't counted against the CI score because they're out of the boundary. Aha, but if you reduce them, suddenly they count in your favor. I call this classic cherry picking. For storage, transport, and use, methane must be liquefied as LNG, liquefied natural gas, or compressed as CNG, compressed natural gas. Methane is nature's escape artist. Any breach, and it reverts to its expansive gaseous state. The GREET model lowballs upstream fugitive emissions from production, processing, and transport, and it ignores something called methane slip, the unburned methane engines release. Biogas leaks can equal or exceed fossil gas, wiping out supposed climate benefits. And a word about LNG, the preferred form of methane for export. Cornell researchers found its greenhouse gas footprint 33% higher than coal. So much for LNG being a clean fuel. Manure projects are not economically viable without lucrative state low carbon fuel standard credits and other financial incentives, which I will get to shortly. According to a UC Davis ag economist, in 2021, it cost nearly $300 or over $600 counting capital expenses to get just $68 worth of biogas from one cow's annual manure output. But with LCF credits, that manure was worth over $19,000. Low carbon fuel standard credit value, subject to market forces, fluctuates. 2021 was a banner year, but the return on investment remains high. Who's willing to pay top dollar for these credits and why? Carbon credits come in two flavors, compliance and voluntary. Compliance credits are used by entities legally required to reduce emissions under programs like California's LCFS or the Federal Renewable Fuel Standard, which I'll talk about later. Voluntary credits are used by companies with no mandate to back net zero or sustainability claims. They're frequently low integrity, what I call the Wild West of carbon accounting. Too often, carbon markets buy and sell the illusion of clean. Industries pay top dollar for LCFS credits because it's still cheaper than actually cutting emissions. And who pays the price? We do. A behind closed doors industry truth shared at a 2020 conference, The Future of Manure Digesters in Wisconsin. And I quote, making a company or university carbon neutral requires signing a contract, not millions of dollars in infrastructure upgrades. In other words, why pay for real emissions cuts when you can buy our credits? Ah, the money pots. There's a whole menu of federal, state, and local incentives for biogas and other biofuels as well. We'll zero in on the big three money pots for biogas. We've already talked about one, state LCFS credits. The other two are federal compliance carbon credits called Renewable Identification Numbers, or RINs, and IRA tax credits. RINs are issued for every gallon of renewable transportation fuel produced. They're not as valuable as LCFS credits, but there's a guaranteed market because under the Federal Renewable Fuel Standard, refiners, importers, and blenders must meet EPA's annual renewable volume obligations. If they blend more than required, they can sell the extra RINs to other obligated parties who fall short. Biofuels are assigned D codes based on how they're produced. Non-manure biogas earns lower tier D5 RINs. Manure biogas, on the other hand, earns the most valuable D3 RINs. And I got to tell you, when you learn why. I mean, I was just like flabbergasted when I learned why. Okay, D3 RINs are supposed to support cellulosic biofuels made from plant materials rich in cellulose and lignin. So, how does dairy biogas qualify as cellulosic? Oh, because a cow's natural diet is cellulosic. But wait a minute, CAFO cows are typically fed a non-cellulosic diet, mostly corn and soy. And even if cows eat forage, they pre-digest the plant fibers. So no matter their diet, their manure is cellulose and lignin poor. Yet dairy biogas still qualifies for the D3s, and so does swine and poultry biogas, even though those animals don't even naturally eat a cellulosic diet. I just gotta shake my head. Digester and refinery capital costs first became eligible for IRS tax credits, ITCs, under Section 48 in 2008. The IRA of 2022 expanded those credits, but they expired on January 1st, 2025, but shed no tears for the biogas industry. When the Section 48 door closed, two others opened: Section 48E investment tax credits and the new 45Z production credits. Section 48E, and I'm sorry for all these numbers and letters of the alphabet, but these new credits, which replace the old ones, reward so-called zero emissions electricity. Qualifying biogas projects now receive investment tax credits for installing new power generation equipment. The 45Z production tax credits also kicked in on January 1st, 2025. That's the second door that opened. The GREET model, created by the U.S. Department of Energy for the IRS, assigns manure biogas a uniform CI score of -51. Still generous, but far less negative than the inflated California LCFS scores. And unlike California, the IRS has not granted extra credit for negative values, at least not yet. You can be certain the industry is pushing for that. It seems that the IRS is stingier with the carbon math. Well, LCF credit profits, being market commodities, don't cost the federal government a cent. Aha, but tax credits drain the treasury. I'll mention one more money pot: ratepayer funds. In 2023, Consumers Energy, a Michigan utility, got nearly $11 million for two big dairy biogas projects. Public dollars are bankrolling new rural gas infrastructure with biogas as the pretext. On that note, I'm going to take a little detour here. So, most biofuels are blended with fossil fuels, hence the need for gas infrastructure. They're marketed as clean, but marketed as clean. An industry slide even claims 1 part dairy RNG plus 3 parts fossil gas equals carbon neutral. In reality, blending is usually under 1 to 5%. Does 3 plus 1 really equal 0? Biofuels keep us locked into combustion fuels and entrenched in gas infrastructure while diverting resources from truly clean renewables. Let's see. I think I missed, let's see. Oh, I went backwards. Okay, sorry about that. So let's compare the, wait a second. Okay. All right, there we go. So this screenshot from the American Biogas Council shows the typical polished public face of the biogas industry. Another greenwashed image of contented cows on pasture, paired with promises of a multitude of environmental benefits. Let's compare that public image with what's actually said behind closed industry doors. At that same industry conference I mentioned, a speaker admits biogas isn't viable without the credits and subsidies. The real motive is clear: profit. Federal RINs and California LCFS credits are described as game-changing revenue streams. The phrase giant sucking sound refers to the pull of LCFS credit profits. And this was before the IRA tax credits were sweetened. I want to draw your attention. I know this slide is busy, but just focus on, the highlighted area. And this is from another presentation delivered at the same conference. The speaker explains, back to avoided methane crediting. The speaker explains the basis for avoided methane crediting under California's LCFS in this way: methane emissions from manure are unregulated. So capturing methane from sewage sludge or landfill waste doesn't pay as well. Not because those feedstocks yield less methane, they actually yield more ton for ton, but because because methane emissions from those facilities are regulated. For an administration that openly dismisses climate change, I got to tell you, the hypocrisy is so glaring. Climate talk is out, except when flawed climate math translates into profits the for biofuels. Federal RIN and IRS tax credit values are tied to CI scores, calculated based on the alleged greenhouse gas savings of renewables over fossil fuels. But yet, they don't believe in climate change. So I don't get it. Well, I do get it. It's all about profit. Historically, Democrats have actually led state LCFS initiatives, but in practice, these LCFS programs have served Republican interests very, very well, enriching big oil, big ag, and gas utilities. After President Trump took office, those same industries lobbied to preserve IRS biofuel tax credits. They stripped out climate language and rebranded biofuels as a path to energy independence and global dominance. Biofuels made the One Big Beautiful Act cut. Wind and solar, as you guys know, did not. Now, Michigan Democrats plan to reintroduce an LCFS that prioritizes combustion fuels. That again prioritizes combustion fuels, I should say, in a move straight from the Republican playbook. Competitive replaces clean. They're not just staying on the biofuels train, they're helping Republicans drive it. Okay, let's see. Hopefully, there we go. The same volume of biogas can earn multiple credits. That's called stacking. Carbon and tax credits are supposed to be additional, or carbon credits, I should say. Carbon credits are supposed to be additional, meaning the activity wouldn't have happened without them. In theory, no double.
We're looking at a blank page.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'm
Perfect.
sorry, it reverted back to the blank page. Thank you. So anyways, in theory, there's not supposed to, carbon credits are supposed to be additional. No double counting. In reality, double counting. And I'm just this slide, I just really want to quickly say that big dairy and biogas interests are targeting my state and the Midwest. Michigan is a very attractive target because of its abundant water resources, including groundwater, what we refer to as the Sixth Great Lake, its relative climate haven status, and its very robust right to farm act. So, and the state is already handing out generous economic incentives on the backs of taxpayers and ratepayers, as I already mentioned, to grow industrial dairy. And I won't go into the rest of it. Just know that my state is laying out the red carpet for biogas. And this slide, all those red balloons, those are 35 commercial dairy biogas projects across Michigan that I've been able to identify. And it wasn't easy, let me tell you, because they don't necessarily, um, there's no uh, comprehensive list. It takes some searching. Some of these facilities are operational, some are in construction, under construction, and others are in the planning stages. There's probably more, but this is how many I could find. Many of them were announced or began construction around the same time as the introduction of Senate Bill 275 and the rollout of the new IRA tax credits for biogas. They were clearly anticipating rich rewards. And the corporate partners include public utilities like Consumers Energy and DTE, Vanguard Renewables, um, Brightmark, big oil and gas companies. Corporate investors enjoy several what I call on-farm advantages. The capital costs are lower thanks to indirect access to ag subsidies meant for farmers. That's another one of those money pots. And there's no need to buy land. Plus, the livestock producer actually shares in the financial risk. Additionally, the regulatory framework is looser. Oversight is lighter. As for the digestate disposal, it's not their problem. That burden falls on the farmer, while rural communities bear the brunt of the pollution.
Yep.
The demand for energy guzzling data centers is threatening national and state clean energy goals. In some states, it's even kept coal plants alive. AI knows it has a power problem, and it's eyeing biogas as a green solution. So let's talk about consequences. Despite the claims, digestate isn't safer than raw manure. It doesn't eliminate pathogens or odors and may actually worsen nutrient pollution. The nitrogen and phosphorus in digestate are more water soluble, making them more likely to run off into surface waters or leach into groundwater. This raises the risk of harmful algal blooms, fish kills, and toxic nitrate levels in private wells. Digestate can also increase ammonia emissions. When it comes to ammonia emissions, what comes up must come down. They are a major but often overlooked source of nitrogen pollution from CAFOs. Ton for ton, and I mentioned this before, other feedstocks besides manure yield far more methane, as this chart shows. So here's what you do if you're a company looking to maximize biogas profits. The strategy is really clear. You invest in a co-digester, an on-farm co-digester that combines the most valuable feedstock, dairy manure, with the highest yielding waste streams. However, co-digesters introduce a host of additional concerns. We kind of mentioned all the nasty stuff, all the nasty feedstocks that can feed co-digesters and all the harmful substances. So, I'm not going to elaborate again on that. But just know that the co-digester feedstock ratio of manure to this outside waste is typically 20 to 25% manure to 75 to 80% outside waste. So in addition to the contaminants that we've talked about, like microplastics and PFAS and a bunch of other things, that translates into tons more digestate applied to
What are
farm.
you doing out here, kitty?
Huh?
Yeah.
And I have to ask you to, Mr. Zoom user, who are you? Can you identify yourself, please? And mute too after you're done.
I think that's Jay Bassett. I joined late.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt, Cheryl.
Oh, no, that's okay. So
I'm sorry about that. I'm just coming out of a car and I should have muted.
no, that's okay. I wasn't sure what's going on. I can't see anything other than my slide. Anyways, microplastics are a particular concern with depackaged industrial food waste. In fact, a University of Vermont literature review identified microplastic contamination as a near ubiquitous challenge. And in 2022, Vermont actually placed a moratorium on new depackaging facility certifications. Okay, so a lot of you, or most of you, or all of you are, healthcare professionals in the allied healthcare field. So let's talk about, some of the public health consequences. This busy slide shows the widespread harms that CAFOs cause, infectious diseases, water and air pollution, and more. I'm going to focus here on one overlooked danger, and that's CAFOs as high-risk incubators for pandemic viruses. Highly pathogenic avian influenza A, H5N1, or bird flu, has already ripped through U.S. poultry and dairy CAFOs. Spillover into dairy cows is an alarming first. The crowded, stressful conditions in factory farms create the perfect storm for the emergence of pandemic viruses. HPAI is the latest warning, and I always say it's only a matter of when, not if. Large volumes of antibiotics deemed medically important for humans are used in U.S. food animals to control disease, and this, of course, selects for antimicrobial resistance. Factory farm manure is a major reservoir of resistance genes, or ARGs. Manure, also loaded with bacteria, fosters the spread of resistance via those ARGs, and when applied to farmland, manure can contaminate soil, food, and water with resistant bacteria, endangering human health. Anaerobic digestion can actually make things worse. We've glossed upon microplastics, but I want to talk about them in a little bit more detail because I think they are a serious emerging threat, especially nanoplastics, the microscopic subset. The particles themselves are harmful, but worse, they act as Trojan horses because they can bind toxic pollutants and deliver them deep into tissues. Nanoplastics are found throughout the body. They damage cells and DNA, they disrupt immunity, they trigger inflammation, they're linked to cancer, heart disease, strokes, neurodegenerative disorders, dementia, preterm birth, and infertility. Nanoplastics persist in digestate. You might be able to filter out, the larger macroscopic particles, but the nanoplastics are a problem. Once in the soil, they can be taken up by food and feed crops and enter our food supply and water. Animal welfare. I'm concerned about animal welfare. I care about the environment and public health, but I also care about animals. There's a Texas dairy, already a mega CAFO, that was permitted to nearly triple in size in 2019. Probably not coincidentally around the time when plans for a biogas project surface. More manure means more biogas, means more profit. In 2023, a fire killed nearly 18,000 cows, but by July 2024, the herd had rebounded to 16,000 and digester construction had begun. In Arizona, an undercover investigation documented extreme animal abuse at a 25,000 cow mega CAFO. Can you just imagine all the manure, and in the case of this CAFO, equipped with a digester, all that digestate? Biogas companies say they target already sizable CAFOs, and that may be true to some extent. I do think biogas incentives incentivize new constructions as well, but what they don't say is that the big often get bigger in response to the incentives. Not all mega CAFOs abuse animals or catch fire, but common sense does suggest that the larger the herd, the greater the safety concerns and animal welfare concerns. We must learn from past mistakes, not repeat them. Ask the couple from Maine and the cattle farmer from Michigan whose farms and livelihoods were destroyed by PFAS-contaminated biosolids applied as fertilizer to their land. Ask the growing number of U.S. farmers whose land has been similarly poisoned. Is digestate, particularly from on-farm co-digesters and other digesters processing microplastics and PFAS-laced industrial wastes like from sewage sludge, next in line to become yet another so-called beneficial use waste byproduct that proves toxic to human health? Oh, jeez. Okay. Let's talk about electrification. You guys know, electrifying transportation is essential. EVs are far cleaner and more efficient than their internal combustion engine counterparts. I'm not opposed to California or Michigan's bold electrification goals, only to their LCFS roadmap. We must electrify, but we must do it the right way. Some LCFS advocates see it as the best and fastest ways for states to meet transportation electrification goals. But is it? Does a flawed means justify the end? Let's look at how California's LCFS electrification is actually playing out. You know, not all electricity is clean. Source matters, which brings us to what I call electrofiction, the idea legitimized by California's LCFS rules that biogas electricity is somehow way cleaner than wind or solar. Originally, EV charging, oh, we're still over here. Originally, EV charging credit value was based on a default average grid CI score, but in 2015, CARB took a wrong turn, approving customizable and, thanks to avoided methane crediting, highly lucrative RNG to electricity pathways. Let's take a look at what I think is an eye-opening table that I created from the California Air Resources Board. They're the body that administers the LCFS program, their current fuels pathway. So you already know dairy RNG used directly as a transportation fuel commands high credit values. But burn that gas on farm to generate electricity, apply something a fudge factor known as the energy economy ratio or EER, and those CI scores plunge even farther. Look at these scores for electricity, dairy RNG on-farm electricity generation, minus 400 to minus 900. That's crazy. The EER fudge factor that I talked about assumes that EV charging displaces higher emission fuels. I predict that modular power plants alongside utility scale digesters and refineries will be the next wave. And most so-called zero CI sources earn LCFS credits by buying other state carbon credits without ever using any zero CI electricity. So you can see it's all about magic math. U.S. fossil gas yields and exports continue to rise. Imports are down, but domestic production is booming, raising a critical question. Is biogas merely freeing up more fossil gas for export, padding the profits of extractive oil and gas companies without reducing global greenhouse gas emissions? It doesn't matter if California or Michigan cuts in-state fossil fuel use if global consumption keeps rising. Greenhouse gases don't respect state lines. California's LCFS has funneled about 80% of credit values to combustion-based biofuels, mostly RNG and renewable diesel. Only about 20% has gone to electricity. RNG is massively overcredited. It accounts for just 5% of the total fuel volume, but receives 20 to 25% of the credit value, again, thanks to avoided methane crediting. Manure RNG made up 73% of RNG in 2024. Only 20% of RNG volume is actually used in natural gas vehicles. The other 80% is claimed as electricity for EVs. CARB doesn't break down which sources generate those electricity credits, but RNG likely dominates. CARB projects that electricity will claim a growing share of credit value, but how much of it is going to come from poop to power instead, as opposed to wind and solar? California's LCFS, as I hope I've taught you is riddled with problems. And, one of the major problems is the avoided methane crediting gimmick. Something really does stink, dairy manure and avoided methane crediting. A digester developer who is deeply invested in California dairy projects told the truth when CARB considered eliminating it. And this is what he said: if you end that, you take away most of the value and the whole reason they do it. It's never been about the climate. Putting avoided methane crediting aside for now, let's explore how California.
What's that?
Hey, Cheryl,
Yeah.
we're getting close to 9:30,
Oh,
just so you know.
I'm
No.
sorry. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, all right. So I thought I was short. I don't know when we got started. Okay, so anyways, electricity used to charge EVs earns LCFS credits. In California, those credits must be reinvested into EV infrastructure with equity provisions built in. Investor-owned utilities have to reinvest 100% of the revenue. That sounds pretty good at first glance, right? About those reinvested credits, RNG producers still earn the credits for methane capture. Electricity suppliers using that same RNG for EV charging also claim credits, but they're kind of fluff credits. They don't pay more for the gas and they don't fund its production. So they reinvest the revenue from those fluff credits, kind of looking generous, while oil and gas companies buy both the LCFS production credits and the electricity fluff credits to meet LCFS mandates without actually cutting emissions. All right, I'm going to skip. Oh, God. I'm going to skip crop-based biofuels. And I already mentioned that the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, biofuels are the winner, and losers are wind and solar and battery storage. So this table taken right from CARB, this is the zero CI line. And what I want to point out is that the best wind and solar can do under the California LCFS is a CI score of 0. Okay. All the fuels, most of the vast majority of fuels on the negative side are all RNG pathways. RNG to CNG, RNG to LNG, RNG to electricity, RNG to hydrogen. So you can see that, our dairy manure RNG is really edging out truly clean renewables. The next biogas frontier, there's gold in them, their hills. Landfills of the biogas industry's next frontier. Energy recovery, which is code for biogas, currently sits low on EPA's waste management hierarchy, but the biogas industry is jockeying for a higher tier, lobbying to have anaerobic digestion reclassified as recycling on the premise that nutrients are returned to the soil. I like this zero waste hierarchy better. It keeps the focus where it belongs on preventing waste generation. Diversion has a role, but source reduction is key. Waste to biogas schemes claim to divert and recycle, yet shifting landfill waste to farmlands isn't recycling, it's relocating. It's not diversion, it's digestate dumping. Biogas policies encourage more, not less waste. I'm not going to go through this. So this is the penultimate slide. Could there be such a good thing as such a thing as a good LCFS? Possibly, but it would look very different from California's. It would eliminate avoided methane crediting, and it would mandate rigorous life cycle assessments, no cherry picking. It would drive true zero emission electrification, prioritizing wind and solar pathways. There might be a limited role for RNG, but only with realistic CI scores, and never, never, never at the expense of source reduction. And digestate must be strictly managed, and no on-farm co-digesters or imported waste. California actually promises to phase out avoided methane crediting, but not until 2030 and stretched over a decade or more. That's far too late. A Michigan LCFS should say no up front. The planet can't wait. And last slide, To end on a hopeful note, um, it's not about sustainability. It's about waste to wealth, chasing carbon and tax credits, subsidies, and other incentives. It's not about helping farmers or revitalizing rural communities. It's about strategic siting, exploiting regulatory loopholes, grabbing subsidies meant for farms, offloading digest aid onto farmers, and keeping us locked into fossil fuels. But here's the hopeful news. Rural communities are actually wising up to the biogas game, rising up in opposition, and winning. With them leading the charge, we might just hold back a Midwest manure rush. There we go. That is the end. And I'm sorry.
You understand this in such depth, it's really phenomenal. And it sounds like a few other people on this call also understand this. Jay, you've added a couple things. Did you want to comment?
Oh, maybe I'll comment to say, I was part of the rulemaking process for RINs, and I was trying to oppose pieces of it, and was overruled. I was doing the waste side. My concern was that the original cellulosic inventory driven for RINs was based upon the classification of landfill gas as inherently cellulosic, because without that, they could not have passed the rule because I didn't have an inventory. So when we talk about biogas and renewable natural gas, it's all connected to landfills before we said and done. So I really appreciate the end where you connected it back to this waste-driven industry, which it is, of taking waste and claiming it's green, and generation of energy, which is utter bullshit.
So thank you.
Your message got across, Cheryl.
Thank
It's
you. That-
late. It's about 9:32. But if there are questions, we can, stay on.
I'll stay, but I don't expect anybody else to stay. It's
Really
late.
appreciate everybody being here, and Cheryl for your tremendous fund of knowledge.
I thought this presentation was shorter. I don't know. Maybe it was by.
We got going a little late.
Okay. I mean, it's normally like 55 minutes, and I thought I had gotten it down to 40, but oh well. Back to the drawing board.
But we
Thank
did introductions, and then you had to find your phone, so
Yeah,
it did start a little bit late.
I know.
Anyhow, any other questions? It's a lot of
Cheryl?
information. Go
Cheryl,
for it.
sometime I would like to have a follow-up conversation with you a little bit more directly, because these are areas I've been, I've pushed back on. I've been shot in the butt for it more than once from EPA. I was one of the designers of some of those waste hierarchies you saw, and really pushed back. So I've also written policy about chemical recycling, which is connected to all this as well.
Oh, God.
So,
I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah,
Do
so we
an email
probably,
introduction to the two of you.
yeah, that would be good, because I think there's some things we just need to do a deeper dive in, and maybe I can help provide some other allies out there for the pushback you want to do.
No, that would be great. And, one of the things that there's a growing coalition of us who have joined forces to, fight the anticipated reintroduction of a Michigan low carbon fuel standard. And one of the things we want to keep in our back pocket is the possibility of a good LCFS. And so I think that is just based on what you've told me, so far, that is something that you could, help us design. And
Yeah, and Cheryl, I think the other part of that we want to remember is that part of the basis for biogas is for the production of new plastics, and call it biorenewable. You're already seeing that in the marketplace. So it goes well beyond just fuels.
Oh, I know, and we would be here until midnight. Trust me, I have slides and Word documents and folders, full of information on that. But you know,
But can you put your email in the chat? Because I don't have it. I thought I did, but I don't. I can probably look it up on CCL community if you don't want to do that. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I just want to share an experience that we've had dealing with Southwest Gas, which is the gas provider for our town, Truckee, California, which is a very small town. And the town has been negotiating for 2 years to renew the franchise with Southwest Gas. And one of the things it has wanted to do is to get some kind of um, commitments from Southwest Gas to help the town meet its 100% renewable objectives. And the first thing they came up with was renewable natural gas.
Oh, of course. That's
And
yeah.
and the town essentially told them in nicer terms that renewable natural gas was fairy dust and we were not interested in that. But of course, the next thing they came up with was blending hydrogen.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
so I just testified this earlier this week, Monday, excuse me, late last week, Friday, uh, in a hearing they held here for a pilot hydrogen blending project in our town. And, I mean, there's just no end to the sort of ridiculous suggestions coming from natural gas companies, and we're trying to interest them in doing things like network geothermal,
Yeah.
which gas companies are, and as a matter of fact, there's some very interesting stuff going on in your state in Ann Arbor. Um,
Mm.
but it's extremely difficult to get through to these people that we're not interested in more natural gas. We would like natural gas companies to stay in business and transition their business,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, that we're really interested in. But renewable natural gas is the first thing that you hear about.
Oh, and I showed that one table from CARB, everything, just about everything to the left of the zero CI line was an RNG pathway. And I didn't go into RNG to hydrogen, or RNG to um but yeah, there's an RNG pathway for so many different things. So you mentioned Ann Arbor. Are you where are you from, Deirdre?
I'm from Truckee, California, but I belong to a group working on thermal energy networks. That's part of a group here in California, the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And it's a group of people from all over the country who are sharing information and learning.
That's
And there are some people from Ann Arbor. And Ann Arbor has just voted to have its own separate, publicly owned, sustainable energy utility, which is a very interesting development. I hope they succeed.
Yeah, that's something I have some activist friends from Ann Arbor who, they've been pushing for that, working toward that for a long time. I hadn't actually heard that they got it. That's good to know. And I do hope it works. But, there's also a green development project called Southtown that plans to use dairy biogas to produce our